So how many people in here actually consider user experience as part of their jobs? That's really good. How many people here talk to people that are not themselves about what it's like to use the products that they're building? Still a really good number. That's kind of what I'm going to talk about today, is that we need to really have open communication with other users out there, because believe it or not, we actually come with a whole bunch of biases. Even if we're trying to take other people into consideration as we're building, there are things that we don't know and don't understand about how they experience the world. For instance, I'm from America. Things that we do over there are very different than are done here in Scotland, or perhaps the Congo, South Africa, or Japan. I can't truly understand what is going on with someone unless I ask them. I may think I know what's going on, but I don't always. And to kind of explore that a little bit, I'm going to actually take you through an example, and that example is really about me. I've been doing accessibility advocacy for about a decade. Front-end, back-end development, I'm really focused on user experience and front-end development right now. That's the thing that I feel I do best. A little over 2 years ago, I experienced a disability myself. So for those of you in the back who can't see, I do have a cane. And I want to share this a little bit. And if anybody here gets motion sickness, this deck is set up in a way that I want to. It's set up so that to try to give you an experience of what it's like to be me. And so they're going to get slides like this before things that might trigger motion sickness. So please be aware of that right now. And that's because I've got a disease that makes me constantly motion sick. It started out with having migraines. As a kid, I always had headaches. I started having migraines every couple of months or so. About a decade ago, they became chronic migraines. I have a migraine every single day. Today's a rare moment where my pain level is relatively low. I don't even consider like low headache a problem anymore, because I'm always in pain. My doctors, and I've seen about a half dozen different neurologists and specialists and things like that over the last decade to try to figure out what's going on. They gave me all sorts of medications. Most of them did not work. A lot of them I reacted to, and the few that did just sort of left me hallucinating. Literally walked into a meeting with the CEO and started seeing things jump off the wall at one company. So that wasn't really good. About 2 years ago, that chronic pain and chronic headaches actually became something more, a vestibular disorder. It's a balance issue. Your internal gyroscope is made up of three main things, and then your brain processes the information. You have your sense of space around you, where you exist. You have your ocular system, and then you have your hearing system, your inner ear system that will actually give you that sense of of how the world is, and then your brain interprets it. Well, turns out that my hardware works fine, except my brain's expecting Ruby, and it's getting Java instead. And so I'm getting beat up on having a tremendous amount of dizziness all the time. They started in about 2012 as episodic, where it would be a few seconds here, a few seconds there, and it would go away, and I'll get those every about 3 or 4 or 5 times a day. Over the next spring, through the winter and the next spring, it started accumulating. And they started to become more and more present, to the point where by the time I got to June, or May-June timeframe, I started walking with a cane all the time. There it is. And I was walking with a cane all the time because this is what I felt like. I felt like I was on a boat where it was constantly rocking. At a good time, it was like this. At a bad time, it was like the wind really picked up, and I'm having to deal with a whole bunch of waves. I actually started having a problem where I would actually drift to one side, usually the right, and then I would go for, and then I would have the problem of running into things, running into walls and stuff like that. By June, I basically stopped driving. The amount of movement in the car, things like that, made it really difficult. It's been a little over 2 years, or almost 2 years, and I do very little driving right now, only within a couple of miles. I don't do any big driving. And that is because looking over the shoulder to check the blind spots, things like that, will actually send me into an episode of peak dizziness. I stopped seeing straight lines. I know lines are straight, like the line's right here, but they don't look straight to me. If I look back in the hallway, basically what I'm seeing is a tilt, sometimes up to 45 degrees. I know it's not that way. My brain says that can't be, but it's not what my system is seeing. July of 2013, they gave me a handicap placard. I wish this was my car. Because I couldn't really walk long distances at that point. I could maybe go 100 yards or so, and then I'd have to stop. I've slowly been able to work up that a little bit to be a little bit be longer. I've actually done up to a couple of miles at this point. I've gone as many as 5 miles in a day, which doesn't really sound like that big of a deal to a lot of people, especially in a city like Edinburgh, where it's really easy to, it's really a walking friendly city. But for me, it's a huge deal. I personally, if I can go a mile, I'm probably gonna have to rest for a half hour to 45 minutes just to recoup the energy that I've lost in doing that, because I struggle so much. Certain things around the house I can't do anymore. Standing in front of an oven to cook takes a lot of work. Even prepping the food, I sometimes just have to sit at the table because standing is so much more difficult for me. Bending down to get stuff out of the laundry or the dishwasher or anything that is low to the ground will have a tendency to trigger a spell. So it's really hampered how I take care of the house, and I've had to rely more on my kids and my partner in order to do so. In fact, it would be a total mess if I didn't. So stairs, right? It's the UX of stairs. We don't think about this a lot, you know? We see a set of stairs, we step up, we start walking, and we just keep going up. If we see a really huge set of stairs, in most places, I would say that may be a little intimidating, having seen some of what you people call streets around here in the last 24 hours. Apparently stairs are not intimidating to the people of Edinburgh. But you see a lot of stairs, and it can cause, you just go up them. It's stairs. Oh well, big deal, right? For me, it causes panic. Going up and down anything more than a couple of stairs at any time always becomes a panic situation. I have to plan where every foot goes, where my cane goes. I'm looking for handrails, or if there's not a handrail, I'm leaning against the wall with my other hand. It takes time, it takes concentration, and it takes a lot more energy. The fact that I've put on weight since I started having this disability takes even more energy. When that energy kicks in, I'm left confused. I have aphasia. You may have noticed a few stutters and stops. I'm actually lose words. There's receptive and expressive aphasia. If my partner's telling me something and I'm in the middle of a panic attack or a vestibular attack, I will literally not hear her. There are times when I can't find the words. I'll just be stuck there for quite a while. So this brings me to what I really want to talk about. Share a little bit about what it's like to be me, and this is about what I've noticed since developing this disability. The physical world is not built with people with disabilities in mind. In the United States, we have the ADA, the American Disabilities Act. There are some laws that are similar throughout Europe. It's my understanding there is not really an equivalent here in Scotland. But the ADA demands that any public building have things like accessible doorways and make sure that anybody with a wheelchair or a cane or a walker or whatever their accessibility needs has access to that building. The ADA requires that the button to open a door be between 3 and 12 feet away from the door itself. It requires that the path of the opening not be in the path of walking, and it also is supposed to be at a certain height, between 36 and 48 inches. Average height is around 42 inches. Next time I'm here, I'm going to translate into centimeters for that. But so when I see doors like this, I don't use them all the time, but I've got a cane. If I'm carrying something, I only have one other free hand. I do use these buttons on a regular basis, so I really started to pay attention to where they're at. This one has the right height. It is technically the right distance, but it is not out of the way of the walking path. So as someone in a wheelchair comes up to it, they have to turn sideways, turn at an angle, or they have to hit the button and back up and then roll forward. And this is a good scenario. This actually happens to be a rest stop on the way to Kentucky for a conference I was at last week. So the other thing that I found inside here is that, I actually had an attack because the hand dryer was too low. I had to bend over to use it. Sometimes things are in the way of the button. So in this particular case, that's the button. How is somebody going to actually get in there and use it? I don't really know. A lot of times the doors are broken. So there's not enough room for this is as far as it opens, and there's not enough room for it, and the button is actually 6 feet behind me from when I took this picture. There's a lot of stores that do not accommodate for people with disabilities. This is Pottery Barn. They have gaps to move between their displays from anywhere from 18 inches to 24 inches. The law requires 36. They ignore it, and nobody holds them accountable. Grocery stores are actually stacked in rows and not columns, so if you're extremely tall, you can't reach. You have to bend over, or if you have a vestibular disorder and you have to bend over to get something off the bottom shelf, it can cause an attack. People in wheelchairs can't reach the top. And the reason is the prime space, which is usually about waist height to about eye level height. So for someone who's about 5'9" or to 6 feet tall, is actually bid on by the people who are putting stuff on the shelves. So General Mills or Kellogg, they would actually pay for that prime spot, and everybody who doesn't want to pay gets the other areas. In technology, though, we have the opportunity to do a lot better than this because we are able to turn things around faster. It takes a while to build a building or make these physical changes in the world. In technology, we have the ability to turn around a prototype in a week. We could, depending on what our build process is, we can actually get stuff out there much, much faster than that. But we have to keep it in mind as we do it. So here are a few tips to actually make your stuff more accessible. Number one, make sure that you can navigate your app or your web page with a keyboard. If you can't navigate it just by a keyboard and take all the actions, you need to go back to the drawing board and continue working on it because it's not going to be accessible otherwise. A lot of people are using keyboards, and I rarely take my hand off the keyboard to go to a mouse. Modals are extremely difficult to actually get right. Modal windows like this one have a tendency to not put the focus in the right place. And so we need to, if we're gonna fire them off, I prefer that we don't, but if we're gonna fire them off, we're gonna actually have to make sure that we lock the user into the modal and can't access anything else until they exit the modal. And once exit, they're put back right where they originally triggered that modal from. Forms tend to be quite challenging. Every form field needs to have a label that is attached to that form field. If it is not attached to it, we reduce the amount of clickable space, the amount of focus, and we also reduce the amount of context. Don't put placeholders as labels. They need a specific label. Otherwise, screen readers won't actually see them. When there is an error, be descriptive of the error and actually give them a list of errors at the top. And best practice is to link them directly to the field that the error has and then continually link them down to the next error and the next error and next error. Navigation, hotkey combos, things like that are really challenging. People with assistive technology, using screen readers or braille readers, things like that. A lot of times assistive technology has hotkeys because they don't use mice. And the OS itself has hotkey combos that you can use for navigating. There is currently not a hotkey combo out there that is not taken by some sort of assistive technology or OS. So when we introduce them, keyboard shortcuts, we're actually overriding something somebody is already using and expecting to be there. If you put hover, it should be attached with focus. Always have a focus state. This comes back to the keyboard navigation. This also helps with your mobile pieces. And then probably the thing that I love and hate the most, animation, scroll jacking, parallax, anything on that page. This makes me physically ill. And if we can reduce the amount of animation that we actually have or do it wisely, we can actually improve the experience for a lot of people. Something like this, if I wasn't doing the research for this, I would jump away immediately because it starts to make me sick. One of the things that I'd like to see is if you're gonna have animation on your page, why not give the user control of that animation? I like to default it in the off position. I may be biased there. But the point is give them the control so that they can turn it on and turn it off. It will also has the potential of increasing your performance if you're not having to animate everything unless the user asks for it. Background video. It's really best not to autoplay it because it can make people sick just like the animation. If you are going to autoplay it, give them a way to turn it off. That one jumped really quickly. Sorry about that. You're doing video, do transcripts and use WebVTT to actually create a transcript, and you can actually have that on the page, but also include it as closed captioning. It's really easy to set up. Icons should never be used alone. Icons should always come with text. I understand that some people don't feel that way, but when we're looking at icons, all of the icons I'm showing here, just as an example, are actually skeuomorphic representations of what we know from our lives outside of the digital world. They're social contexts and constructs that we've actually put together and we understand as a group. However, there are people out there that do not understand these. Some people will not know that an envelope that looks like that is necessarily mail. A shopping cart may not be used in their country. It very well could be that it's just a generational thing. And no, that was not it. All right, that was awesome. It very well could be that the save icon that we have up here is actually, people have never actually seen one of these. Recently there was a tweet I saw where a kid replied to his dad, you 3D printed the save icon? GitHub does a pretty good job of this, and this is gonna go off and I'm still not quite there, so I'm just gonna We're almost there. 4 more slides. GitHub does a pretty good job with it. Pair it up with text because you're going to have the person look at it and be able to move a little bit quicker on scanning it, because then they don't have to figure out what does this actually mean. We need to consider color as well. So here's normal and 2 types of colorblind. Make sure that your colors have enough contrast. Fonts are extremely important. If you are dyslexic and you're looking at your reading, depending on your type of dyslexia, sometimes the letters will be flipped or turned around. Make sure that you pick a font that actually has the ability to have unique characters for every letter. That way, if it does get flipped around, this set of characters right here, which are usually the worst culprits, will still look unique enough that you can actually read and process it at a fast speed. And also write to your reader level. If everybody here, if you're writing to a developer, use all the jargon you want. If you're a lawyer writing for a lawyer, use the jargon you want. But if you don't know who your audience is, it should be a reading level targeted at about 13 years old. 8th grade reading level, I don't know what the equivalent is around here, but that seems to be the average that's currently going. And the next thing is just find a whole bunch of people that are not like you and test with them. Put them through the paces. Test early and test often. And that's my talk.